Between 2004 and 2021, Bed Bath & Beyond spent $11.8 billion buying back its own stock, not upgrading its stores, not building an online platform, not investing in the people who worked there, buying back pieces of paper that represented ownership in a company that was slowly dying. When it filed for bankruptcy in April 2023, those shares were worth zero. Every single dollar gone. This is the story of how a company that once defined American home ownership was hollowed out from the inside by the very people who were supposed to save it. In 1971, two retail veterans named Warren Eisenberg and Leonard Feinstein were watching their employer, a discount chain called Arlen's, collapse underneath them. They were both in their 30s. Both had spent more than a decade in retail management, and both saw the same thing happening in American shopping. Department stores were losing their grip. Customers didn't want to buy their towels and bed sheets from a store that also sold refrigerators and winter coats. They wanted specialists. So Eisenberg and Feinstein pooled $50,000 each and opened a small shop in Springfield, New Jersey. They called it Bed and Bath. The concept was dead simple. Name brand linens and bath products at prices department stores couldn't match, in a store that felt like a destination, not an afterthought. It worked. By 1985, they had 18 stores across the Northeast and California. But what happened next is what turned them into a retail empire. They created the superstore. In 1985, Eisenberg and Feinstein debuted a 20,000 square foot format that was unlike anything in home goods. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, products stacked so high you needed a ladder to reach it. Every aisle overflowing with merchandise. They called it organized chaos, and customers loved it. Walking into a Bed Bath & Beyond felt like a treasure hunt. You went in for a shower curtain and came out with a new blender, a set of wine glasses, and a garlic press you didn't know you needed. In 1987, they renamed the company Bed Bath & Beyond to reflect the expanding product range: kitchen electrics, home decor, seasonal goods. The Beyond wasn't just branding, it was a promise. Whatever you needed for your home, they had it. They went public in 1992 on the NASDAQ. By 1999, annual revenue crossed $1 billion. The stock was climbing. Analysts were calling it one of the best-run specialty retailers in America. 8 consecutive years of record earnings. And then there were the coupons. The famous 20% off coupons, printed on oversized blue postcards and mailed to millions of households. They became known as Big Blue, and they were a cultural phenomenon. Late-night hosts joked about them. People hoarded stacks in kitchen drawers. Rumors spread online that they never expired, even though they technically had expiration dates printed right on them. The strategy was elegant. Mail the coupon, get the customer through the door. Once inside that maze of floor-to-ceiling merchandise, they'd impulse buy far more than the coupon saved them. One study found that customers who redeemed coupons actually released oxytocin, the feel-good hormone. Big Blue wasn't just a discount, it was a dopamine hit wrapped in direct mail. By the early 2000s, Bed Bath & Beyond was unstoppable. Revenue doubled from $2 billion to $4 billion between 2000 and 2004. It kept climbing: $6 billion, $8 billion, $10 billion. By fiscal 2014, the company was generating over $12 billion a year in revenue across more than 1,000 stores. The stock peaked above $80 a share in January 2014. Market capitalization exceeded $17 billion. Every college student furnishing their first dorm room went to Bed Bath & Beyond. Every newlywed building a wedding registry went to Bed Bath & Beyond. It was woven into the fabric of American domestic life. For a generation of shoppers, it was where you went when you were building a home. But behind the stacked shelves and the Big Blue coupons, something was already rotting. And it started with a decision that would eventually destroy the company. Here's the first crack. Starting in 2004, Bed Bath & Beyond began buying back its own stock in massive quantities. This is how it works. A company uses its cash to purchase its own shares on the open market. Fewer shares outstanding means earnings per share goes up, which makes the stock price go up, which makes executives and shareholders happy. It's financial engineering. It creates the illusion of growth without actually growing anything. Between 2004 and 2021, Bed Bath & Beyond spent $11.8 billion on buybacks. They bought back 264 million shares at an average price of more than $44 each. That's more than 3 times the number of shares that were still outstanding when the company collapsed. Think about that number, $11.8 billion. That's more than twice the $5.2 billion in debt the company had on its books when it filed for bankruptcy. That money could have funded a world-class e-commerce platform. It could have renovated every single store. It could have acquired competitors. Instead, it vanished into a stock ticker. In 2014, under pressure from activist investors, the company took on $2 billion in debt specifically to fund more buybacks. They borrowed money to buy back stock. And then in 2020 and 2021, even as the business was visibly deteriorating, they authorized another $1 billion in repurchases. They burned through their entire $1.5 billion cash reserve in just 18 months. By the time the cash was gone, so were their options. Here's the second crack. While Bed Bath & Beyond was pouring billions into buybacks, the internet was eating retail alive. Amazon launched its home goods category. Wayfair built an entire business around online furniture and home products. Target invested heavily in same-day delivery and a sleek digital experience. Bed Bath & Beyond did almost nothing. Founder Warren Eisenberg later admitted it himself. "We missed the boat on the internet." That's a direct quote. The man who built the company acknowledged they failed to adapt. By the mid-2010s, customers who once drove to the superstore on a Saturday afternoon were ordering the same products from their couch. Free shipping, easy returns, price comparisons that made the big blue coupon irrelevant. Why clip a 20% off coupon when Amazon's everyday price was already lower, and those coupons that built the empire, they were now destroying it. Bed Bath & Beyond had trained an entire generation of shoppers to never pay full price. Customers perceived the store's regular prices as overpriced and wouldn't buy anything without a coupon. Gross margins fell from 40% to 30% between 2014 and 2019, while revenue barely moved. They were selling the same amount of product, but keeping less of every dollar. In 2019, 3 activist investment firms, Legion Partners, Macellum Capital Management, and Ancora Advisors, launched a campaign against Bed Bath & Beyond's leadership. They published over 150 pages of analysis, arguing that CEO Stephen Tamaris had presided over more than a decade of underperformance. They wanted the entire board replaced. They won. The company replaced 5 directors and pushed the co-founders, Eisenberg and Feinstein, off the board. The men who built Bed Bath & Beyond from a single store in New Jersey were forced out of the company they created. And the new board's first major move was to hire a new CEO who would supposedly fix everything. His name was Mark Tritton. He came from Target, where he'd been the chief merchandising officer, credited with building Target's wildly successful private label brands, Good and Gather for food, All in Motion for activewear, Cat and Jack for kids' clothing. Target's private labels were a genuine retail triumph, so the new board hired Tritton to do the same thing at Bed Bath & Beyond. The problem? Bed Bath & Beyond wasn't Target, and what worked in one store wouldn't work in the other. Here's the third crack. Between 2020 and 2022, Tritton launched 9 private label brands, names like Our Table, Haven, Simply Essential, Wild Sage, and Nestwell. To make room for them, he pulled beloved national brands off the shelves. The name brand cookware, the bedding lines, the kitchen tools that customers had come to Bed Bath & Beyond specifically to buy, gone. Replaced by cheap private labels that consumers immediately rejected. Shoppers walked in and didn't recognize the store. The products looked generic. The quality felt lower. Store managers were forced to slash prices by 80% just to clear private label inventory that nobody wanted. One retail analyst described the results as a dumpster fire. Another called it a cosmetic reinvention copied from Target, with very little substance behind it. Here's what the numbers looked like. In the quarter ending May 2022, sales dropped 25% from the year before. The company posted a net loss of $385 million, compared to $51 million the year prior. Revenue had collapsed to levels the company hadn't seen since 2009, wiping out a decade of growth in just 2 years. Tritton was fired in June 2022 after barely 2.5 years on the job. During his tenure and that of his hand-picked executive team, total compensation exceeded $71 million. Revenue dropped 29%. The company's stock, which had briefly surged during the meme stock mania, was in freefall. And that leads to the fourth crack, the meme stock moment that made everything worse. In early 2022, a man named Ryan Cohen, the founder of Chewy and a hero on Reddit's Wall Street Bets forum, bought a 9.8% stake in Bed Bath & Beyond through his investment firm, RC Ventures. He paid about $121 million. He got 3 new board members appointed. He publicly criticized the company's strategy and floated the idea of selling off its buyback baby subsidiary. His involvement sent a signal to retail investors. The guy who saved Chewy was going to save Bed Bath & Beyond. In August 2022, the stock surged from around $5 to over $30 in a matter of days. It was GameStop all over again. Reddit threads exploded. Retail investors piled in, buying $131 million worth of shares in just a few days. Then, on August 16th and 17th, while the stock was still above $20, Ryan Cohen sold his entire position, every single share. He made roughly $60 million in profit in 5 months. Within 2 days, the stock dropped 52%. Retail investors who had bought at $20, $25, $30 a share watched their investments evaporate. A class action lawsuit was filed accusing Cohen of a pump and dump scheme, alleging he encouraged retail investors to buy while secretly planning to sell. The SEC later opened an investigation. 2 weeks after Cohen sold on September 2, 2022, Bed Bath & Beyond's chief financial officer, Gustavo Arnal, died. He was 52 years old. He had been named as a defendant in the same class action lawsuit and had reportedly been working 18-hour days as the company unraveled around him. This was a real person, a father, a husband, someone who spent 20 years at Procter & Gamble before joining a company in crisis. The pressures of corporate failure are not abstract. They destroy real lives. With that, the company entered its death spiral. In August 2022, the new interim CEO, Sue Gove, announced the closure of 150 stores and a 20% workforce reduction. By January 2023, another 120 stores were slated for closing. In February, 87 more, including all 49 Harmon Face Value stores. Vendors stopped shipping. When your suppliers think you might not pay them, they demand cash on delivery or stop delivering entirely. Bed Bath & Beyond's shelves, once famous for being stacked to the ceiling, were now bare. Customers walked into stores and found empty aisles. The organized chaos that once made shopping there an adventure had become actual chaos. The company tried everything: emergency financing, new credit facilities. They even tried selling shares directly to the public to raise cash, diluting their existing shareholders even further. But the math was impossible. Revenue was collapsing. Debt was mounting. Vendors were fleeing. There was no turnaround left to attempt. On April 23, 2023, Bed Bath & Beyond filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. But this wasn't a restructuring. From the beginning, the plan was to liquidate. At the time of filing, the company had roughly 360 Bed Bath & Beyond stores and 120 buyback baby locations. Total liabilities, $5.2 billion. Total assets, $4.4 billion. The math tells you everything. They owed more than they had. The going out of business sales began immediately. Big red banners replaced the big blue coupons. Everything must go. 60% off, 70% off. Shoppers who had spent decades at Bed Bath & Beyond now picked through the remains like bargain hunters at an estate sale. On June 28, 2023, Overstock.com won the bankruptcy auction for the Bed Bath & Beyond brand name, trademarks, website, and customer data. The price? $21.5 million. A company that was once worth $17 billion, sold for $21.5 million. That's 0.1% of its peak value. The last Bed Bath & Beyond store closed its doors on July 30th, 2023. Approximately 32,000 people lost their jobs. Many of them were promised severance that never came. The company laid off more than 1,000 workers in New Jersey alone, days before a new state severance law would have protected them. Meanwhile, former CEO Mark Tritton sued the bankrupt company for $6.8 million in unpaid severance. Interim CEO Sue Gove was eligible for $7.1 million. The executives got paid, the workers did not. This is a pattern we keep seeing. So what killed Bed Bath & Beyond? It wasn't one thing. It was a sequence of decisions, each one rational in isolation, each one catastrophic in combination. Lesson 1. Stock buybacks are corporate self-cannibalism. When a company spends $11.8 billion buying back its own stock instead of investing in its future, it is eating itself alive. Buybacks boost earnings per share without increasing actual earnings. They reward shareholders today at the expense of the company tomorrow. In our first video, we showed how private equity firms extracted value from Toys R Us until nothing was left. Bed Bath & Beyond didn't need private equity to do the extracting. Its own board and management did it willingly, using the company's cash and borrowed money to inflate a stock price that ultimately went to zero. Lesson 2. Brand loyalty is an asset you can destroy, but never rebuild. It took 30 years to build Bed Bath & Beyond into a place where people felt something when they walked through the doors. Newlyweds scanning wedding registries, college kids buying their first set of real towels, families stocking up before the holidays. Mark Tritton destroyed that emotional connection in 2 years by ripping out the brands people came for and replacing them with products nobody asked for. Like 23andMe, the company we examined last time, Bed Bath & Beyond had a product people loved. But loving a product and surviving as a business are two completely different things. Lesson 3. Activist investors don't always activate the right things. The activists who forced out the founders and installed new management were right that the company needed to change. But the change they demanded, private labels, aggressive buybacks, a Target-style reinvention, was exactly the wrong medicine for this particular patient. They treated a company with an identity crisis by giving it someone else's identity. Here's what's left. The Bed Bath & Beyond name now belongs to an online retailer that used to be called Overstock. There are no stores. There are no stacked shelves. There is no big blue coupon. 32,000 jobs are gone. $11.8 billion in buybacks bought exactly nothing. And the executives who presided over the destruction walked away with millions. This is the thesis of Business Autopsy. These companies weren't killed by Amazon. They weren't killed by changing consumer tastes. They were killed by the people who were supposed to be running them. Financial engineering that prioritized stock prices over stores. Activist investors who demanded changes they didn't understand. Hired gun CEOs who imported strategies from companies that were nothing alike. And through it all, the workers and the customers, the people who actually made these companies what they were, got nothing. Next time on Business Autopsy, we examine another American institution that was gutted from the inside. Subscribe so you don't miss it.